Ladies and gentlemen, Pokemon Draft League fans, we are back. Season 4 of Pokemon 4 Glory. There we are. We're on whatever season. We're reviving all the leagues this time around, and I am here for it. I hope you guys are too. Pokemon 4 Glory, P4G. I am all about it. I hope you guys are too. A low-tier meta league. You guys can check out the fan doc in the description first and foremost if you guys are looking to see which Pokemon count as low tier. What does that even mean? But essentially in a low tier league, as opposed to budgeting points and being able to draft 10 to 12 mons like we did in the Shuckle Premier League or the Pokemon Premier League, in this low tier meta, every Pokemon is assigned a tier 1 through 5. You have to pick so many of each tier, and only our tier 5s can actually be a Tera captain. So there's a few things to keep in mind here. Of course, feel free to check out the rest of the coaches. Links to their stuff will be in the description of this video. So you guys go check out everybody's draft analysis. It's draft season, baby. We're back. I'm so excited. Love me some Pokemon Draft League, as you guys very well know. And I'm really excited to get into a low tier meta. I feel, you know, that with Scarlet and Violet, there were a lot of really power creepy mons that came out with all of the Paradox Pokemon, with a lot of the DLC introductions with things like Ogerpon, the Loyal 3, Terapagos, stuff along those lines that I really feel just started to get a little too much. And then, of course, Sword and Shield, you had everybody's favorite Dragapult, you know, a few other just like big mon, Darkrai, you know, coming out of prior gens and being good, Deoxys, just a lot of these really key player mons that we decided to just forego and really make this a little bit, you know, kind of a little more old school, but with the current style mechanics with 6v6, updated graphics, you know, terrestrialization, all that fun stuff. So I hope you guys are excited. Leave a like, subscribe if you're new, and we'll start talking about it. So I was pretty near, like the dead middle kind of ish. We're 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 out of 14 coaches. Actually, I was near the end, so not a wheel, but not a wheel. Like I like dead middle just kind of sucks because you can't really like plan too much. I feel like there's too much liability there to try to leave a Pokemon on the table and then hope it comes back your way around after about 6 picks. So being that there's only 3 people ahead of me, like after me, and then coming back, there's only 6 opportunities. So if I can identify some Pokemon that just kind of work well together, maybe take some key players off the board, maybe just kind of play a little bit more to my strengths right out the gate, then I'm going to do it. And, you know, first out the gate, as we start to break down the team, you know, everybody gets 1 tier 1. So let's talk about the tiering requirements. Everybody gets 1 tier 1 Pokemon. You can consider that like the captain or like the strong, like the big bad one that you pick. Everybody gets 2 tier 2 Pokemon, 3 tier 3s, 3 tier 4s, and 2 tier 5s for a total of 11 Pokemon. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 11. Yeah. Okay. A total of 11 Pokemon. So you got to kind of figure out like what do you want? How do you want to build? How do you want to play? You know, really, how do you want to go about this league? Just like with every other league, but I think the fact that it is a tiered requirement means you have to be a little bit more thoughtful. You know, you can't drop like 40 points in 3 picks and then kind of pick up the better of the bottom feeders. You have to be a little bit more deliberate in your picks. So some of the types overlap. I think we've got a really good team. I'm really looking forward to it, and I hope you guys are too. The first Pokemon we picked was actually not a tier 1 Pokemon. I feel like there were a lot of good candidates in that pool. And I wanted a Pokemon that was really, really diverse, that could be very supportive, that could be, very, bulky, could be very offensive, just really, really flexible in its role, you know, while still maintaining a good amount of bulk. Like you don't have to min-max it too much. You can kind of sprinkle around some EVs. And the first place loser in SPL last season actually did really, really well with this Pokemon. I had just got done watching a few matches with it being used, and I was like, hey, you know what? Let's go on ahead and pick it up. So our first pick overall was Adam the Empoleon. Now, Empoleon has great typing. Water and Steel is super good defensively, I feel like. You are weak to Electric, you're weak to Fighting, and you are weak to Ground. So as long as you can kind of keep those together, you're looking pretty good there. Empoleon actually got a buff in this gen. Yeah, well, I mean, buff, nerf, however you want to look at it. So from a move pool standpoint, it still has access to Roost. It did lose access to Defog, unfortunately, which is a big thing. It also lost access to Scald. But one thing that it did get was it previously used to have Defiant as its ability, which raised the attack by 2 stages for every stat that it's lowered. It switched it now because Empoleon's attack stat was 86. Like, that's okay, but they switched it now. Now its special attack stat's 111, and they gave it competitive, which is awesome. It does have some really good moves, both on the physical and the special side. You can set up with agility. You also have earthquakes, flash cannons. You got flip turn momentum. You can haze, knock off. liquidation. You can set up stealth rocks. You can go for swords dance. I mean, there's a lot of different things that you can do here with this mon that I'm really looking forward to it. It starts us off with a very nice backbone to kind of build around, especially it being a both water and a steel type. You want to kind of look into a little bit of like your synergy cores, you know, fire, water, grass, steel dragon fairy, and kind of go from there. So on the way back, Empoleon gives us rocks. I would definitely love to get a spike user. I would love it that Empoleon's not our only rocker. And I'd like to kind of look into some of its weaknesses, right? And just kind of see what we can do to mitigate some of those. And on the way back, believe it or not, I had my eye on this mon, and I was like, you know, this helps out with our electric weakness in Empoleon. It does have a 4 times weakness to grass. Empoleon is neutral to grass, which is great. So we can kind of work with each other a little bit. It does have reliable recovery, just like Empoleon does, the access to recover. It has both Stealth Rock and Spike, so we do have a multitude of hazards on the team now. I grabbed Gastrodon. Now, Dazzle the Gastrodon is an old-time favorite of mine. OGs know that I used this back in Gen 7, and this thing's a monster. I love this. I absolutely love it. It does have the water immunity and Storm Drain. It can also have Sticky Hold if you're trying to hold on to like maybe a Rocky Helmet and punish knockoff users. Just constantly holding on to those items so you don't lose those. And then Sand Force, you know, Ground Rock and Steel type moves do an extra 30% in Sandstorm. It is what it is. But being able to set up defense with Acid Armor, it's got a multitude of just different cool special attacks that you might be able to run. Something like Clear Smog to reset any sort of stat changes. Being able to toss off Blizzards. It's got Counter. It's got Curse. Its attack and special attack are pretty okay. Obviously, it's got a little bit more special attack with base 92. Base 83 attack, like with Curse, could be something. I mean, we're already pretty slow, so we could potentially toss off things like Earthquakes, Liquidations if we go for Curse. It does have Memento, which is really nice. Being as slow as it does, that gets us a really nice pivot into another Pokemon. It has recovery both through Pain Split and Recover. Like we talked about, Spikes and Stealth Rock. So really looking forward to this mon. I think they patch each other up like pretty nicely overall. And just being a little bit slower, I was thinking about Pokemon that could kind of help us capitalize on a little bit of a lower speed. Maybe we do bring like a min speed Gastrodon, but just like Bandit or just an offensive one. Same thing with Empoleon. Maybe we run a little bit more offensive, a little bit less speed. I also want to take a little bit of a look into expanding out on the other side of Empoleon's core. Instead of a Fire, Water, Grass, looking a little bit of a Fairy, Steel, Dragon core. And there's one Pokemon in particular last season in the SPL that I was really impressed by that I figured I should give it a shot. It's my first time ever using this Pokemon in its base form. I did have a brief experience with its mega form in probably like a WBE season back in 2017, 2018 probably. But I did not get an opportunity to use it in its base form. It is a Rock and Fairy type. It has access to set up through Calm Mind. It can Baton Pass. It can set up screens. It can set up Trick Room. The next Pokemon that I grabbed is Vaggy, the Diancie. Now, Diancie is a powerhouse. As we saw in our matchup against Joey last season in the SPL, a Trick Room Power Herb Meteor Beam set just absolutely threw me for a loop. And there's got plenty of viability to it as far as its moves. We have another Spiker and another Stealth Rocker. So Empoleon's not locked in. Gastrodon's not locked in if it even wants to show up. We have multiple ways of getting that up. We have Trick Room now to help out with some of our slower mons. This thing also gets set up with something like Rock Polish, so we could run like a Rock Polish Meteor Beam Power Herb set. Access to Psychic, Ice Shock, Power Gem, Moonblast, you know, some disruption through things like Encore, things like Endeavor. We can also run, you know, a dual screen set if so be it. But that is our third pick overall is Diancie. We're looking good, I feel. I feel we're looking in a really good spot. Now we've got a little bit of a ground weakness here going on between Empoleon and Diancie, and I want to be thoughtful as far as what I'm grabbing, where I'm grabbing from, and also kind of working the team together so there's a lot of synergy throughout. We've got some Baton Pass momentum, we've got some Flip Turn momentum, and this next Pokemon I believe I've used like once maybe. It's really more of like a Wi-Fi battle Pokemon that I've grabbed than really anything. It does have a ground immunity barring any sort of mold breakers with its levitate ability. It's got some really nice tricks up its sleeve, being able to dual status with things like Will-O-Wisp and Thunderwave, you know, potential more screens. Volt Switch, it can set up with Nasty Plot as well. The next Pokemon that I grabbed is Alistair the Rotom Heat. Rotom Heat continues to build out that Fire, Water, Grass core, which is great. We do have a ground immunity. The only weakness that this has is rock and water. We have a water immunity, a water resist, and a rock resist, so we're looking really nice there. We got any mold breaker like Pokemon that have Earthquake we got to be careful of. I don't know how many are actually running around in a low tier meta, which is always a good thing. We've got a lot of different moves we can go for, things like Dark Pulses, Fair Coverage, Discharge, Hex, Foul Play, setting up screens, being able to pain split things around, going for dual screens, being able to Thunder Wave, Will-O-Wisp, being able to trick things, being able to Volt Switch things, typical Rotom stuff. But I'm very, very looking forward to this Pokemon. I think it adds a lot to the team in terms of viability. This was another tier 3 Pokemon, so we actually grabbed all of our tier 3s. Like, I felt like these were really solid tier 3 Pokemon. That's where a lot of the meat of the draft is going to come in between tier 3 and tier 4. So I wanted to grab what I felt were just star players out of these tiers, right? So Rotom Heat, I am really looking forward to that. The next Pokemon that I grabbed, so I talked about it, this is going to seem a little odd, and I'm happy that I did it because it turns out I actually sniped another coach. So one of the things that I talked about was in this league, we are allowing terrestrialization as opposed to another league that I'm currently in. If you guys haven't checked out any of those uploads, I'll have a playlist in the description of this video. There is a non-Tera open tier league that I've been taking a part of as well. Really fun team over there if you guys want to check that out. But in this league, terrestrialization is allowed. However, you can only terrestrialize tier 5 mons. So really kind of Pokemon that are drafted towards the end in a typical draft, that are typically low point tier, 1 or 2, maybe 3 points, that you really probably wouldn't think about in a normal draft league, right? But in this low tier league, you want to be deliberate and grabbing the best candidates overall for, what it is that you want to do, right? So I, again, similar with the same vein of drafting all of the tier 3s right out the gate, I felt that tier 5s were, if somebody starts to grab a few good ones, you're going to start to see some momentum shift there. I really wanted to beat that curve. So the next Pokemon that I grabbed actually helps complete our Firewater Grass core, which is really, really awesome. I think that it makes a great Tera captain. And fun fact, actually, after terrestrializing, it does more damage than its final evolution form. The 5th overall pick for the Detroit Steel Wings in this season of Pokemon 4 Glory is Serpentious the Servine. I saw a draft league match where somebody swept with a Tera Stellar Servine with Contrary, constantly boosting the attack and the special attack. I was blown away, and I was like, I need to try Tera Servine, and I figured this was going to be the league to try it in. For those of you who don't know, Servine is a pure grass type. It's the second evolution of Snivy, so it does have access to Eviolite, which is great. The big thing here is that it has its hidden ability Contrary, where if a Pokemon has its stat stage raised, it's lowered, but if it has it lowered, it's raised. So stuff like Stellar Terra Blast, where you're constantly supposed to lower your attack and your special attack, Servine is now boosting its attack and special attack. Things like Leaf Storm, normally dropping your special attack by 2 stages, now raise your special attack by 2 stages. It does have access outside of that to set up with Calm Mind if we don't want to go for any sort of Contrary, if we want to go for an Overgrowth set, things like Coil, Giga Drain, Speed Control with Glare. It can run Knockoff. We talked about Leaf Blade as well. It does have access to Light Screen and Reflect, so we have yet another screens user if we so choose to. Set up with Swords Dance, Synthesis, Recovery, Taunt, Trailblaze for boosting our speed, which could be very good if we don't run a Contrary set, or if we run Trick Room and go for a Contrary Trailblaze, we're now under-speeding things in Trick Room. So lots of really interesting stuff going on there. Potentially even bringing like a room service Servine and switching in on the last turn of Trick Room so we get the speed increase. And then just being able to fly outside of there, which now that I talk about that out loud, that sounds like some really fire tech that I really hope I can pull off. I'm very excited to use this Pokemon. Similar to other draft leagues that allow terrestrialization, this is not an open Tera format. You do have to declare 3 Tera types, 1 being one of the Pokemon's natural typings, and then 2 of any other one that you want. Obviously, Servine is only Tera Grass. There are only grass types, so we are running Tera Grass as our first typing. Like I said, I was shocked to find out, maybe not shocked, maybe I'm just dumb. If I'm dumb, let me know in the comments. But Tera Grass Servine actually outpowers regular Superior, which I was like, this is huge budget. Like, this is great. This is exactly what I wanted. Like, do we have the speed that we want? Nah, not necessarily. Do we need it? Maybe not. So I'm really looking forward to this. Maybe potentially abusing Trick Room as well, as opposed to like a fast Superior. We run like a very slow Servine and just another potential sweeper. So very excited for that. The other 2 Tera typings, Stellar, as I talked about, you do get the additional boost 1 time on one of your moves. And then the Stellar Tera Blast, obviously being able to boost our attack and special attack as long as we're Contrary is great. And then Tera Fairy, I feel like, that's fine coverage to have overall with a lot of Terramons. Just being able to give something a very strong Fairy type move is always good. Only being weak to Dragon and Poison and Steel is really good, especially looking at our team so far. We have Dragon immunity, we have Poison immunities, we have Poison resistances, we have Steel resistances. So being able to terrestrialize out of our grass typing into a Fairy type if we need to could be very beneficial for us. So very excited about that pick. Next Pokemon that we grabbed. So, in tier 2, we have already grabbed our Empoleon. We only get 2 of these. We only get 2 tier 2 Pokemon. And again, it was looking like, what do I want? Like, what do I want to use? What do I feel like is best value here on the table? Something like Diancie as a fairy type is great. I think it does a certain role, though, as a fairy type. And I'd like something with a little bit more overall team support, right? Some wish passing, some good cleric support, maybe some potential to set up with things like Calm Mind, maybe just some immediate breaking potential with something like a Choice Specs. The next Pokemon that I grabbed out of tier 2 for our 6th overall pick is Charlie the Sylveon. Sylveon has everybody's favorite ability, Pixelate, which makes our normal type moves become fairy type and have an additional 20% power, which stacks on top of our stab bonus. So something like Hyper Voice goes a long way. We can set up with access to moves like Calm Mind. We have yet another dual screen setter, which is awesome. We can set up with speed with Trailblaze. We can go for a Wish off a base 95 HP stat. Everything else, Gastrodon has higher HP, and that is it so far. Empoleon's kind of close at 84, but being able to toss off a big Wish onto something like Diancie, Rotom, or Servine can go a long way off of that HP stat. Huge special attack stat at 110, huge special defense stat at 130. Again, being able to potentially abuse Trick Room if need be with that lower speed stat of 60, or potential being able to set up with something like a Trailblaze Throat Spray Hyper Voice set, boosting our speed stage by +1, being able to outspeed a lot of these, pretty much most other Pokemon that are allowed in the meta. Very excited to use this one. It does fall a little bit short again on the attack and defense, but as we talked about, as far as its weaknesses go, Steel, Poison. Did I say Steel, Poison, and Dragon for Servine? Somebody in the comment section is just gonna be like, actually, it's immune to Dragon. Steel and Poison. We have a Steel immunity. We have a Poison resistance and a Poison immunity. So we have a Steel resistance. Don't record late at night, kids. A Steel resistance and a Poison immunity, as well as some Poison resistance as well. Like I said, just kind of like an auto wall breaker, just tossing a Life Orb or a Choice Specs on this thing, or just a Throat Spray and Trailblaze, I think goes a long way here, in my opinion. So that is our 6th overall pick. We've only got a few picks left. We have all of our tier 2s. We have all of our tier 3s. We have one of our tier 5s. At this point in the draft, most everybody has a tier 1 except for maybe a handful of coaches. And we all have kind of this gentleman's agreement that we are not going to, we're going to tell you the tier 1 that we are looking at. Let's all agree not to draft each other, so that way we can focus on building out our team. If you snipe it, you know, if you end up drafting something else or stealing one of our ideas, you're not a good person. Thankfully, everybody upheld the gentleman's agreement, so you won't hear about my tier 1 pick until the end of the draft. So next up, we have a lot of hazard setters available. We don't have much in the means of hazard removal. Heavy duty boots is an option, but there are a lot of Pokemon that I'd rather not take chip damage. Really, Rotom is the only heavy duty boots user that I'd see going for. Maybe something like Diancie, just to make sure we have all of our bulk intact for setting up a Trick Room, but everything else so far is pretty okay, but I still like really get pressured by something like Spikes. I really don't want to get that. I'd like a little bit more bulk. I'd like a little bit more physical pressure. We have a lot of Pokemon that are dealing a lot of very good, specially offensive damage. So the next Pokemon that I grabbed at tier 4, 7th overall, is Angel Dust the Hitmontop. Hitmontop has some really cool abilities. Intimidate, lowering the opponent's attack stage by 1 stage. And then Technician, boosting any moves of 60 base power or low by an additional 50%. Really makes this thing a threat to deal with. It's got 95 base attack, which doesn't sound like too much, but being able to toss off a lot of Technician moves at that level is really nice. We do have access to pivoting with Baton Pass. Of course, we have Rapid Spin. We've got Ice Spinner to remove any sort of terrain. Triple Axle as well, just for that nice coverage. Tons of priority between Sucker Punch, Mach Punch, and Fake Out. Close Combat, Stone Edge. We can set up with Bulk Up. Did we get Swords Dance or just Hitmonchan? I think just Hitmonchan. Things along those lines. I mean, I really like this Mon. It is very reliable from a hazard setting perspective. Just in priority and quick attack, we can literally run 4 priority moves and Fake Out, Mach Punch, Sucker Punch, and quick attack. Like just everything is priority, which is fantastic. So really like Hitmontop. Allows us a little bit more bulk, gives us some physical pressure, gives us an intimidator, gives us some hazard removal. Very nice to have that. Next Pokemon that I wanted to grab. So same vein, right? We're looking really good so far. I like to make sure that my immunities, if I can draft them, are intact. Things like a Dark type for a Psychic immunity, a Flying type for a Ground immunity, things along those lines. Ghost type for fighting a Normal type for a Ghost immunity, things along those lines, right? Our team's pretty slow as is, so potentially a bulkier physical attacker just to be able to abuse Trick Room, maybe something that has access to Eviolite that could, you know, throw off some big ol' hits. And boy, let me tell you, we have the biggest boy that can throw off the biggest hits. Next up, we grabbed Husker the Ursaring. Guts ability, if we're status, our attack is 1.5 speed. or our attack is 1.5 times. Like I said, don't record late at night. Attack is 1.5 times, ignores burn damage, burn having physical damage. So we're able to just throw off these huge hits. Quick feet if we're status. Our speed is +1 stage, which is great, ignoring any speed drop from paralysis. Unnerve if we want to phase out any berries, but really probably just going to be guts, right? Because Ursaring can now evolve into Ursaluna, it does get access to Eviolite. So 90 HP, 75 defense, 75 special defense, all of a sudden become that much more, right? 130 attack too. Bruh. Trailblaze is nice, 55 speed. Being able to go for a Trailblaze puts us in a little bit of a better position if we're looking to outspeed any of my opponent's Pokemon, things along those lines. We can set up with Bulk Up. Close Combat, Cross Chop, Crunch, Double Edge, Earthquake, Facade, Fire Punch, Gunk Shot, Hammer Arm, High Horsepower, Ice Punch, Play Rough, Rock Slide, Seed Bomb, Shadow Claw, Swords Dance, Taunt, Throat Chop, Thunder Punch. I mean, just a monster. Just some ham bone throwing attacks. I am so excited to use Ursaring. I wanted to draft it last season in the PPL. Didn't get around to it. Very, very excited to use it this time around. We've got 3 picks left. We have 1 tier 4, 1 tier 5, and our tier 1. Talking about immunities, talking about hazard removal. Very impressed by this Pokemon's bulk last season in the SPL, the way Chimpact used it. We obviously can't use this in a terrestrialization sense, but I don't think that it needs that in order to be successful. The next Pokemon that we grabbed was Zestial the Drifblim. Drifblim is Ghost Flying type. That is a ground immunity. That is a fighting immunity. That is a normal immunity. Tons of it. We have the Aftermath ability, so if we are KO'd with a contact move, the move's user loses a quarter of its max HP, which is a great thing. Unburden, doubling our speed on held item loss, and then Flare Boost, if we are burned, our special attacks have 1.5 times power. 150 base HP, ton of bulk. Defense and special defense aren't that great, but quite honestly, I don't think it matters with 150 base HP. Base 80 speed with Unburden is awesome. Being able to both a physical side with something like 80 base attack and 90 base special attack. I mean, you tell me. Acrobatics, Air Slash, Baton Pass, Calm Mind, Clear Smog, Defog. We have yet another hazard removal, which is great. Haze, Knockoff, Memento, Pain Split, Phantom Force, Strength Sap, Stored Power, Tailwind Support, Temper Flare, Thunder Wave, Trick Room, another Trick Room setter. Will-O-Wisp. I mean, I love this Pokemon. I think it adds a little bit more to the bulk from a passive side. But I don't think people should sleep on this. I think a Flame Orb Drifblim, being able to set up a Tailwind and then just toss off some big flare boosted special attacks. I think a physically defensive set, being able to Strength Sap back and just keep that lovely health around. I think a lot of that is going a long way with our team. We have 2 picks left. This next pick is going to be our second Tera captain. And this is one of the Pokemon that I had my eye on. Basically because its special attack stat is so broken. It is so broken. Taking a look at our team here. It is, so far our highest special attack stat is Empoleon at 111. This thing's special attack stat is the same as Kyurem. Literal Kyurem at 130 special attack. Our next Pokemon is Razzle the Glaceon. The Glaceon's abilities: Snow Cloak, being able to boost our evasiveness in the snow. Ice Body, getting 1/16 of our HP back in the snow. Not too worried about that. It really is just that 130 wall breaking special attack just right off rip, right? Tons of special moves to take advantage of that. Stuff like Alluring Voice, stuff like Blizzard, Chilling Water, Freeze Dry, Hyper Voice, Ice Beam. Same thing with Sylveon, being able to use Wish support as well. Being able to toss off Weather Balls, being able to toss off Shadow Balls, being able to just do a ton of damage. Another potential Trick Room abuser could also be a Tailwind abuser with something like Drifblim throwing those up. Really looking forward to this. As I talked about, it is our second Tera captain. The 3 choices that I went with were Tera Ice, of course. Just being able to toss off just huge Freeze Dries and Ice Beams. I mean, just monstrously huge, right? The next one I went with was Ghost, and that's because I really would like this to be a little bit of a fighting immunity. We are now neutral to Fire and Rock. We are a fighting immunity, which is great. We can toss off some pretty big Shadow Balls as well, which is nice for us, being able to boost those through our terrestrialization. And the last one, same thing with Servine Fairy. I think turning anything into a fairy just turns out great. Moves like Alluring Voice can get boosted through there. Really looking forward to that. Last Pokemon that I grabbed. So we talked about how the last one that I got was my tier 1. You know, these are where all the big bad ones come into play, right? What possibly could I have grabbed this late in the draft that nobody else had their eyes on that would benefit someone like me? You know, like that would be in my play style. How would I like this? How should I go about it? We've talked about my immunities, right? I really like my immunities. I really like my ability to you know, defensively check some of those things. Something else to know about in Draft League is that you always want your grounded poison type. We don't have any of that right now. We need an answer. Ladies and gentlemen, inspired by the Hisuian Quillfish sweep of Chuckle Premier League, we are bringing on out Cherry Bomb the Overquill. Now, she's got some great abilities. Poison Point has a 30% chance of a Pokemon making contact to poison them, which is awesome. Swift Swim, if Rain Dance is active, this Pokemon's speed is doubled. And then Intimidate, we have yet another Intimidate user being able to drop the opponent's attack stage by 1. As far as its bulk goes, 85 HP, 115 attack, 95 defense, 85 speed, 65 special attack and defense. Very okay. Being able to set up with things like agility, having priority with things like Aqua Jet. Signature move Barb Barrage has a 50% chance to poison, and it's double power if the target is already poisoned. We are now throwing off a 120 base power poison move. Has access to Stab and Crunch. Can set up with Curse. Has access to big moves like Gunk Shot. Has the ability to go for Haze and remove any sort of stat changes that our opponent has. Being able to go for Liquidations, Recovery and Pain Split, Poison Jab. Being able to set up Spikes. Being able to set up Toxic Spikes. Being a grounded poison type to absorb Toxic Spikes. Set up with Swords Dance, being able to hit things hard with Waterfall, being a poison type, giving us access to Toxic. We can never miss Toxic. Being a taunt user, I mean, this Pokemon, Fell Stinger, give me a Fell Stinger Overquill sweep. I am here for it. Very excited to use this Pokemon, and that is going to wrap up our P4G draft for the Detroit Steel Wings. I hope you guys have enjoyed. Please feel free to let me know your guys' thoughts in the comment section down below on what you guys think of the team. Hope you guys are excited for yet another great Draft League season. If you are, leave a like, subscribe if you're new. Next week, we are starting the season opener against Uzi Gunner. I need my revenge. It's going to be one for the books. Don't miss it. All that being said, be great, do great. I'll see you guys in the next video. Later.